Look in the mirror. See those gray hairs spreading faster than they used to? You probably think it's just aging, nothing you can do about it, right? Wrong. What if I told you that gray hair isn't just about vanity? It's actually your body's early warning system, screaming that something critical is missing inside. I'm talking to the men over 50 right now. Because here's what most doctors won't tell you. Premature gray hair is often linked to the same nutritional deficiencies that quietly destroy your brain, weaken your heart, and steal your energy. The same missing nutrients that turn your hair white are also setting you up for cognitive decline, frailty, and even dementia. Think about it, your hair follicles are like tiny factories. They need specific raw materials to produce color. When those materials run out, the factory shuts down. But here's the terrifying part. By the time your hair turns gray, those same deficiencies have already been damaging your nerves, your blood cells, and your brain for months, maybe years. Most men are walking around with hidden nutritional gaps they don't even know about. And it's not because you're eating poorly, it's because your aging body can't absorb these nutrients anymore, no matter how much steak or salad you eat. Stay with me until the end. I'm going to reveal 3 specific nutrients you're almost certainly deficient in, and the hidden mistake in your kitchen that's blocking your body from using them. This could change everything. Gentlemen, let's start with something most of you have noticed but probably dismissed. Your hair turning gray. Maybe you've chalked it up to genetics. Maybe you think, well, my dad went gray early, so I guess I'm next. And sure, genetics play a role, but here's what most men don't realize. Your hair doesn't just randomly run out of color the moment you hit 60. There's a precise biological reason this is happening, and it's unfolding deep inside your hair follicles right now, as we speak. Let me explain exactly what's going on beneath your scalp. Inside every single hair follicle on your head, you have specialized cells called melanocytes. These cells are the workers, the ones responsible for producing melanin, which is the pigment that gives your hair its natural color. Whether you're naturally brunette, blonde, black-haired, or redhead, it's these melanocytes pumping out melanin that creates that color. Think of your melanocytes like little paint factories. Every time a new hair strand begins to grow from the follicle, these factories get to work. They produce fresh pigment melanin and coat each strand as it pushes up through your scalp. It's an incredibly efficient system, and when everything's working properly, your hair grows in rich, vibrant, and full of color. But here's the problem, and this is where things start to break down as you age. These factories run on fuel. Just like a car engine needs gasoline, or a power plant needs coal or electricity, your melanocyte factories need specific vitamins and minerals to keep operating. Without the right fuel, the factory shuts down. The assembly line stops. And when that happens, the hair that grows out of that follicle comes out colorless gray or white. Now you might be thinking, okay, so I just need to eat more vitamins, right? I'll eat some vegetables, take a multivitamin, and I'm good. Not so fast. Because here's the twist that catches most men off guard. As you age, your body's ability to extract and absorb those critical nutrients from food breaks down dramatically. Let me walk you through what's happening inside your digestive system. Your stomach is supposed to produce strong acid hydrochloric acid, to be specific. This acid is essential for breaking down the food you eat and releasing nutrients like vitamin B12, iron, and copper so your body can absorb them. But after age 50, your stomach starts producing less and less acid. It's a natural part of aging, but it has serious consequences. On top of that, your gut lining changes. The cells that line your intestines, where nutrient absorption actually happens, become less efficient. They don't grab onto nutrients as effectively as they used to. And if you're taking medications, the problem gets even worse. Those acid reflux pills, proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole or esomeprazole, they actively suppress stomach acid production. That's their job. But in doing so, They also block your body from absorbing the very nutrients your melanocytes desperately need. So even if you're eating a decent diet, steak, salads, eggs, whole grains, your melanocyte factories are still starving. They're not getting the fuel they need to produce melanin. And without melanin, the hair grows in gray. But gentlemen, here's what makes this situation truly terrifying. And why I need you to pay close attention. The same nutritional deficiencies that are shutting down your melanocytes and turning your hair gray are simultaneously attacking other critical systems in your body. We're talking about your brain cells, your red blood cells, and your nerve fibers. Gray hair isn't just a cosmetic issue. It's not vanity. It's a visible symptom, an early warning sign of invisible damage happening throughout your entire body. When your hair starts going gray prematurely, your body is waving a red flag at you, screaming, something is missing. Something critical is running low. And the worst part? This entire process is being accelerated by something scientists call oxidative stress. If you're not familiar with the term, think of oxidative stress as rust. Just like metal rusts when exposed to oxygen and moisture, your cells start to rust when they're exposed to harmful molecules called free radicals or reactive oxygen species. This cellular rust builds up inside your hair follicles, damaging the melanocytes and accelerating the graying process. Now your hair follicles are supposed to have built-in defense systems to fight this rust. They produce protective enzymes like catalase that neutralize free radicals and keep your melanocytes safe. But when you're missing key nutrients, those defense systems collapse. The protective enzymes stop being produced. The free radicals run wild. And your melanocytes get destroyed. So the gray hair you're seeing? It's not just aging. It's your body running on empty. It's a deficiency crisis happening at the cellular level. And here's the good news. Yes, there's good news. Many of these deficiencies are reversible. If you catch them early enough and correct them, you can actually slow down the graying process. In some cases, you can even restore color to hair that's already turned gray. So what are these missing nutrients? What's the fuel your melanocyte factories are crying out for? Let me introduce you to the first one, and gentlemen, this is probably the most dangerous nutritional deficiency you've never heard of. It's silent. It's common. And it's quietly destroying your brain while you sleep. Alright gentlemen, here's the first hidden nutrient. I need you to pay very close attention to this one, because it's probably the most underestimated, overlooked, and dangerous deficiency affecting men over 50 today. Vitamin B12. Now I know what you're thinking. B12? Come on doc, I've heard of that. I'm sure I'm getting enough. And that's exactly the problem. Most men assume they're fine. They assume that because they're eating meat, fish, eggs, and dairy foods rich in B12, that their levels must be adequate. But here's the shocking, uncomfortable truth that most doctors don't emphasize enough. Nearly 40% of men over the age of 60 are deficient in vitamin B12. 40%. And the vast majority of them have absolutely no idea. Let me start by connecting this directly to your gray hair, because that's probably what brought you here today. Vitamin B12 is absolutely critical for producing melanin in your hair follicles. Without adequate B12, your melanocytes, those pigment factories we talked about earlier, can't function properly. They can't synthesize the melanin that gives your hair color. Multiple clinical studies have proven this connection. Researchers have found that people with premature gray hair, men going gray in their 30s, 40s, and early 50s, often have dangerously low B12 levels in their blood. In fact, there's a specific medical condition called pernicious anemia, an autoimmune disorder where the body loses its ability to absorb B12 from food. And get this, patients with pernicious anemia have a 55% chance of going completely gray before they even hit age 50, more than half. That's not a coincidence. That's a direct cause and effect relationship. But gentlemen, I need to be brutally honest with you here. Gray hair is just the warning light on your dashboard. It's the check engine light flashing at you, trying to get your attention. The real damage, the catastrophic life-altering damage, is happening inside your brain and nervous system. Let me explain what B12 actually does in your body. Vitamin B12 is required to build and maintain something called the myelin sheath. This is the protective coating that wraps around your nerve fibers, your neurons throughout your entire body, but especially in your brain and spinal cord. Think of the myelin sheath like the rubber insulation around electrical wires. Without that insulation, the electrical current leaks out. The signal gets scrambled. The wire short circuits. That's exactly what happens to your nerves when you don't have enough B12. The myelin sheath starts to crumble and break down. Your nerves begin misfiring. The signals between your brain and your body get garbled. And the symptoms start creeping in slowly at first, then faster. You might notice numbness or tingling in your hands and feet. You might feel a strange pins and needles sensation. Your balance starts to feel off. You stumble more often. Your coordination isn't what it used to be. You struggle to remember names, appointments, or where you put your keys. Your thinking feels foggy. Your mood shifts. You feel irritable, anxious, or depressed for no clear reason. And here's the terrifying part. If left untreated, B12 deficiency leads to irreversible nerve damage, severe memory loss, cognitive decline, and eventually full-blown dementia. We're talking about losing your ability to think clearly, to remember your loved ones, to live independently. This isn't scare tactics, gentlemen. This is documented medical reality. Now here's what makes this deficiency so insidious, so deceptive. The recommended daily amount of B12 is only 2.4 micrograms. That's microscopic. That's less than 3/millionths of an ounce. You'd think something that small would be easy to get from food, right? After all, B12 is abundant in meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and dairy products. A single serving of beef or salmon should give you more than enough. But here's the catch, the cruel trick that nature plays on aging men. Your stomach can't extract B12 from food anymore. Let me walk you through the absorption process, so you understand why this happens. When you eat a piece of steak, the B12 in that steak is tightly bound to the protein molecules in the meat. To release that B12 so your body can use it, your stomach has to produce strong hydrochloric acid. This acid breaks apart the protein and frees the B12. But that's only step 1. Step 2 is even more critical. Once the B12 is released, it has to bind to a special transport protein called intrinsic factor. This protein is produced by cells in the lining of your stomach, and its sole job is to carry B12 through your digestive system and into your bloodstream. Without intrinsic factor, the B12 just passes through your gut and gets flushed out in your stool. It never enters your body. So what happens after age 50? 2 things. First, your stomach starts producing less hydrochloric acid. It's a natural part of aging. Your gastric cells slow down. Second, your stomach also produces less intrinsic factor. The older you get, the less efficiently this entire system works. And if you're taking medication for acid reflux proton pump inhibitors like Prilosec, Nexium, or Prevacid, you're actively making this problem 10 times worse. These drugs shut down acid production almost completely. That's their job. They're designed to reduce stomach acid so you don't get heartburn. But in doing so, they also guarantee that you can't absorb B12 from food. Your body is physically locked out of accessing the B12 in your diet, no matter how much steak or salmon you eat. This is why the National Institute on Aging, the leading authority on senior health in the United States, explicitly recommends that older adults get their B12 from supplements or fortified foods, not from regular meals. In supplement form, the B12 is already free, already isolated, and already bioavailable. It doesn't need stomach acid to release it. It doesn't need intrinsic factor to carry it. It absorbs directly through your gut lining. So what's the solution? What should you be eating or taking? I'll give you the exact sources and dosages you need in just a moment. But first, you need to understand the second hidden nutrient, because this one directly controls your melanocytes' ability to produce color. Without it, your hair literally cannot make pigment, no matter how much B12 you take. Alright, gentlemen, now let me introduce you to the second hidden nutrient, and this one might surprise you because most men have never even thought about it. In fact, I'd wager that 95% of you watching this video right now have no idea whether you're getting enough of this mineral or not. I'm talking about copper. Here's something most men don't know, and it's critical you understand this. Your body cannot make melanin without copper. Not won't, not struggles to, can't. It is biochemically impossible. Without copper, your melanocytes, those pigment-producing cells we've been talking about, are completely powerless. They simply cannot produce the color that's supposed to be in your hair. Let me explain the science in the simplest terms possible. Copper is the essential cofactor for an enzyme called tyrosinase. Now, if you're not familiar with enzymes, think of them as biological machines, tiny molecular workers that perform specific chemical reactions in your body. Tyrosinase is the master switch, the enzyme responsible for converting an amino acid called tyrosine into melanin, the pigment that gives your hair its color. Without copper, tyrosinase can't function. It's like trying to turn on a light switch when the power's been cut. The switch is there. The wiring is there. But without electricity, nothing happens. Copper is the electricity that powers tyrosinase. Without it, the assembly line shuts down completely. The melanin production stops. And your hair grows in gray. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a car with a full tank of gasoline. The fuel is there. The engine is intact. Everything looks good under the hood. But if you don't have a spark plug, that engine will never start. It doesn't matter how much gas you have, without the spark, there's no ignition. Copper is the spark plug for melanin production. Without it, the whole system is dead in the water. Now this isn't just theory or speculation. Clinical studies have proven this connection beyond any doubt. Researchers have taken men with premature gray hair and measured the copper levels in their blood, then compared those levels to men with normal pigmented hair. And the results were undeniable, stark, and consistent across multiple studies. Men with gray hair had significantly lower copper levels in their blood than men with colored hair. And here's the kicker: the more severe the graying, the lower the copper levels. It's a direct dose-dependent relationship. In other words, the less copper you have, the grayer your hair becomes. It's not a coincidence. It's cause and effect. But gentlemen, here's the terrifying part, and I need you to hear this clearly. Copper deficiency doesn't just affect your hair. Copper is a critical trace mineral involved in dozens of essential processes throughout your entire body. Let me break down what happens when you don't get enough. First, copper is required for producing red blood cells. Without adequate copper, your bone marrow can't manufacture enough healthy red blood cells, which leads to a condition called anemia. You become chronically fatigued. You feel weak. You get short of breath climbing a flight of stairs. Your brain feels foggy because it's not getting enough oxygen. Second, copper is essential for maintaining your immune system. It helps your white blood cells, your body's defense soldiers, function properly. When copper levels drop, your immune response weakens. You get sick more often. Infections last longer. Your body can't fight off viruses and bacteria the way it used to. Third, copper plays a vital role in forming connective tissue throughout your body. This includes collagen and elastin, the structural proteins that hold your bones, joints, tendons, and blood vessels together. Without enough copper, your bones become brittle and prone to fractures. Your joints ache. Your blood vessels lose elasticity, which can contribute to cardiovascular problems. So when we talk about copper deficiency, we're not just talking about gray hair. We're talking about anemia, weakened immunity, brittle bones, joint pain, and increased risk of heart disease. This is serious systemic stuff. Now here's what makes this so frustrating. The daily requirement for copper is only 900 micrograms. That's less than 1 milligram. That's almost nothing. You'd think it would be incredibly easy to get from food, right? But most men aren't getting it. And here's why. The richest sources of copper, the foods that contain the highest concentrations, are foods that most men rarely eat. I'm talking about organ meats like beef liver, shellfish like oysters and crab, and certain nuts and seeds like cashews, sunflower seeds, and sesame seeds. When's the last time you ate liver? When's the last time you had oysters? For most men, the answer is never, or maybe once a year at a fancy restaurant. If you're not regularly eating beef liver or oysters, there's a very good chance you're deficient in copper. And just like with B12, your body's ability to absorb copper from food decreases as you age. Your digestive system becomes less efficient. Your gut lining doesn't pull nutrients out of food as effectively as it used to. So even if you're eating some copper-rich foods, you might not be absorbing enough to meet your body's needs. But gentlemen, here's the good news. And this is where hope enters the picture. Copper deficiency is reversible. This is not a permanent, irreversible condition. When you restore your copper levels through diet or supplementation, studies have shown that hair can actually regain color. The melanocytes wake back up. The tyrosinase enzyme starts working again. The pigment returns. I've seen this happen in clinical practice. Patients who correct their copper deficiency sometimes see color returning to previously gray hair within a few months. It doesn't work for everyone, especially if the graying is purely genetic, but for deficiency-driven graying, restoration is absolutely possible. Now there's one more nutrient pair you need to know about, and this one is critical because it controls whether your hair follicles even have the energy to grow in the first place. Without this pair, your follicles essentially suffocate. Let me explain. Alright gentlemen, we've covered B12 and copper. Now let's talk about the third critical piece of this nutritional puzzle, and this one is actually a dynamic duo, folate and iron. These two nutrients work as a team. And without them, your hair follicles simply can't function. They can't grow. They can't produce pigment. They essentially shut down. Let me start with folate, also known as vitamin B9 or folic acid when it's in supplement form. Folate is absolutely essential for DNA synthesis. Now, if you remember your high school biology, DNA is the genetic blueprint inside every cell in your body. Every time a cell divides and replicates, it has to copy its entire DNA library and pass it on to the new cell. That process requires folate. Without adequate folate, cells can't divide properly. DNA replication fails. Cell growth stalls. And here's why this matters so much for your hair. Your hair follicles are some of the fastest dividing cells in your entire body. Think about it. Your hair grows about ½ an inch per month. That means your follicles are constantly, relentlessly churning out new cells, dividing, replicating, building. Every single day, your hair follicles are replicating DNA and pumping out fresh cells to construct hair strands from the root up. This is an incredibly demanding, high-energy process, and it requires a steady, uninterrupted supply of folate to keep the assembly line moving. Without enough folate, that process slows down. The cells can't divide properly. Hair growth stalls. And because melanin production is tied to active hair growth, pigment production fails right along with it. The hair that does manage to grow comes out weak, thin, and gray. Multiple studies confirm that men with premature gray hair often have low folate levels in their blood. But here's the kicker, and this is where it gets really interesting. Folate deficiency usually shows up alongside B12 deficiency. These two nutrients work together in your body's metabolic pathways. They're partners. They rely on each other to perform critical biochemical reactions, particularly in the synthesis of nucleotides, the building blocks of DNA. If one is missing, the other can't do its job effectively. It's like having a two-person saw for cutting down a tree. If one person stops pulling, the whole operation grinds to a halt. That's why correcting a B12 deficiency without addressing folate or vice versa often doesn't solve the problem completely. You need both. Now, folate isn't the only player here. You also need iron, and this is where things get even more critical. Iron is required to build hemoglobin, the protein molecule in your red blood cells that carries oxygen throughout your body. Think of hemoglobin as the delivery truck that transports oxygen from your lungs to every tissue, every organ, every cell in your body. Without enough iron, you can't produce enough hemoglobin. Without enough hemoglobin, your blood can't carry enough oxygen. And without enough oxygen, your cells start to suffocate. Your hair follicles, remember, are incredibly metabolically active. They're constantly dividing, constantly building, constantly producing melanin. All of that activity requires energy. And energy production requires oxygen. Without a steady supply of oxygen, your melanocytes, those pigment-producing cells, can't generate the energy they need to synthesize melanin. The production line slows down, sputters, and eventually stops. Your hair turns gray. Research consistently shows that men with premature gray hair frequently have low ferritin levels. Ferritin is the stored form of iron in your body. It's your iron reserve, your backup supply. When ferritin levels drop, it's a clear sign that your body is running out of iron. And when that happens, hair pigmentation is one of the first things to go. Now, here's where most men run into trouble, and this is a critical point I need you to understand. If you're getting your iron primarily from plant sources like spinach, lentils, beans, or dark leafy greens, your body struggles to absorb it. Plant-based iron is called non-heme iron, and it's much harder for your digestive system to absorb compared to the heme iron found in red meat, poultry, and seafood. In fact, your body absorbs only about 2 to 20% of non-heme iron from plant foods, depending on your overall diet and nutrient status. Compare that to heme iron from meat, which is absorbed at rates of 15 to 35%. It's a massive difference. So if you've gone vegetarian or you're trying to cut back on red meat for heart health, which, by the way, can be a smart move for other reasons, you need to be very strategic about how you're getting your iron, because simply eating more spinach isn't going to cut it if your body can't absorb the iron that's in there. But gentlemen, here's the good news, and this is one of the simplest nutritional hacks you can implement starting today. Vitamin C. When you eat iron-rich plant foods alongside vitamin C, your body's iron absorption skyrockets. Vitamin C acts as an absorption enhancer. It converts the non-heme iron into a form that your gut can much more easily absorb. So what does this look like in practice? It's simple. Add lemon juice to your spinach. Eat strawberries or blueberries with your lentil soup. Have an orange or a handful of bell peppers alongside your beans. Squeeze fresh lime over your dark leafy greens. These small, easy changes can double or even triple your iron absorption from plant foods. So now you know the 3 hidden nutrients that are critical for maintaining hair color and overall health as you age. Vitamin B12 for nerve function and DNA synthesis. Copper for activating melanin production, and the folate-iron pair for cellular energy and growth. But here's the climax, the part that most men get dangerously, catastrophically wrong. There's a hidden mistake you're probably making right now, maybe even today, that's actively blocking all 3 of these nutrients from working in your body. Even if you're eating the right foods. Even if you're taking supplements. This mistake is sabotaging your absorption and keeping your body in a state of chronic deficiency. And most men never realize it until it's too late. Alright gentlemen, here we are. This is the climax. This is the part that changes everything. Because here's the shocking, frustrating, almost cruel truth that most men never discover until it's far too late. You could be taking all the right supplements, eating all the right foods, following every piece of advice I've given you so far, and still be deficient in B12, copper, folate, and iron. Still deficient. Still gray. Still declining. Why? Because the real problem isn't what you're eating. The real problem is what your body can't absorb. Let me explain this carefully, because this is the hidden mistake that's sabotaging millions of men over 50 right now. And most of them have absolutely no idea it's happening. Your digestive system is supposed to be a nutrient extraction machine. From the moment food enters your mouth, your body is designed to break it down, pull out the vitamins and minerals, and deliver them into your bloodstream where they can be used by your cells. That's the system. That's how it's supposed to work. But after age 50, that machine starts breaking down. The parts wear out. The efficiency drops. And the nutrient extraction process that worked flawlessly when you were 30 or 40 starts failing when you're 60 or 70. Here's what's happening inside your body right now. Your stomach is producing less hydrochloric acid, dramatically less. Remember, this acid is essential for breaking down food proteins and releasing nutrients like B12, copper, and iron so they can be absorbed. Without enough acid, those nutrients stay locked inside the food and pass right through your digestive system unused. You eat the steak. You excrete the B12. You never absorbed it. Your gut lining, the delicate membrane that lines your intestines and absorbs nutrients into your bloodstream, gets damaged over the years. Years of medication use, chronic stress, inflammation, processed foods, and environmental toxins slowly erode this lining. It becomes less efficient. It doesn't pull nutrients out of food the way it used to. You're eating the right foods, but your gut is letting the nutrients slip through. And that intrinsic factor protein we talked about earlier, the one that carries B12 into your bloodstream, your body produces less of it every single year after age 50. By the time you're 70, you might be producing only a fraction of what you produced at 40. So even if your stomach acid manages to release B12 from food, there's not enough intrinsic factor to transport it into your body. But gentlemen, here's the killer, the part that makes this situation almost criminal. Common medications that millions of men take every single day actively block nutrient absorption. These aren't experimental drugs. These are mainstream, widely prescribed medications. Proton pump inhibitors, those acid reflux drugs like omeprazole, esomeprazole, lansoprazole, shut down stomach acid production. That's literally their function. They're designed to stop your stomach from producing acid so you don't get heartburn. But in doing so, they guarantee that you cannot absorb B12 from food. No acid means no B12 absorption, period. And it's not just acid reflux drugs. Metformin, the most commonly prescribed diabetes medication in the world, actively depletes B12. Long-term metformin use is directly associated with B12 deficiency and all the neurological damage that comes with it. Even over-the-counter drugs like aspirin and ibuprofen medications men take daily for aches, pains, and inflammation damage your gut lining over time. Chronic use creates microscopic erosions and ulcerations in your stomach and intestinal walls, reducing your ability to absorb nutrients across the board. So you're eating well. You're taking supplements. But your medications are actively sabotaging your absorption. Most men never realize this until it's too late, until they're already experiencing cognitive decline, nerve damage, chronic fatigue, and yes, premature graying. So what's the solution? How do you fix this? Gentlemen, you need to bypass the broken system. You need to work around your body's absorption failures and deliver nutrients in forms that don't require stomach acid, don't require intrinsic factor, and don't rely on a perfectly healthy gut lining. Here's exactly how to do it. For B12, skip the food sources entirely if you're over 60 or taking acid-blocking medication. Go straight to supplements or fortified foods like nutritional yeast and fortified breakfast cereals. In these forms, the B12 is already free, already isolated, and already bioavailable. Your stomach doesn't need to extract it from protein. It absorbs directly through your intestinal lining, even without intrinsic factor. This is why the National Institute on Aging explicitly recommends supplements for older adults. It's not a suggestion. It's a medical necessity. For copper, prioritize the most concentrated sources. A single 3-ounce serving of beef liver gives you over 12,000 micrograms of copper, more than 10 times your daily requirement. A serving of oysters gives you several thousand micrograms. If you can't stomach organ meats or shellfish, and I understand, most men can't, then go for cashews, sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, and lentils. But here's the catch. You'll need consistent, daily intake. These plant sources contain much lower concentrations, so you can't just eat them once a week and expect results. For folate and iron, eat plenty of dark leafy greens like spinach and kale, beans and lentils, and fortified grains like enriched bread and pasta. But always, and I mean always, pair plant-based iron with vitamin C. Squeeze fresh lemon juice on your spinach. Eat strawberries or blueberries with your lentil soup. Have an orange alongside your beans. This one simple trick can double or even triple your iron absorption from plant foods. And here's the final piece, the protective shield you need to put in place. Even if you fix these deficiencies, oxidative stress will keep attacking your melanocytes and accelerating aging throughout your body. That cellular rust we talked about earlier, it never stops. So you need to flood your system with antioxidants to neutralize it. Eat selenium-rich foods like tuna, salmon, and eggs. Load up on beta-carotene from carrots, sweet potatoes, and cantaloupe. Get vitamin C from citrus fruits, bell peppers, and strawberries. These antioxidants act like rust inhibitors, protecting your cells from ongoing damage. Gentlemen, this isn't just about gray hair anymore. This is about protecting your brain from dementia, protecting your nerves from irreversible damage, protecting your heart and your longevity. This is about taking back control. Let me leave you with this. Your gray hair is not a sentence. It's a signal. Your body is trying to tell you something. And now you know exactly what it's saying. You've just learned that 3 hidden nutrients, B12 copper, and the folate iron pair, are the key to restoring your hair's natural color. But more importantly, you've learned that fixing these deficiencies protects you from cognitive decline, nerve damage, anemia, and frailty. This is bigger than vanity. This is about taking back control of your health in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. So here's what I want you to do today. First, talk to your doctor about getting your B12 copper and ferritin levels tested. Don't guess. Know your numbers. Second, start prioritizing fortified foods and bioavailable supplements, not just random multivitamins. Third, overhaul your diet to match the guidelines I've shared. More fish, more leafy greens, more nuts and seeds. And always pair plant iron with vitamin C, and finally quit smoking if you haven't already. Stop taking unnecessary medications that block absorption. Manage your stress. These lifestyle factors are silently accelerating your aging. You have the knowledge now. The question is, will you act on it? If this video helped you, hit that like button and subscribe for more senior health tips that actually work. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you going to get your nutrient levels tested? I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong. Stay healthy.